What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another video. I am the Hobbyist, and today I'm going to be doing a highly requested video on Reddit, and that was how to get more traction out of your RC crawler. Now, most of these tips will have to do with the tires. However, there will be some things like techniques when driving, as well as weight distribution in your crawler. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So first, I'm going to get down to the obvious ones first. Obviously, if you swap out your tires for something that's a bit more high-end, then that will definitely help you gain more traction on your crawler. These are Proline high racks. They are very, very highly rated rock crawling tires, and a lot of people swear by them. But just as important as the tires is what's inside the tires. In here, I have Proline's dual stage foams, which means it's a very hard sidewall, as you can see, but up here, it's nice and squishy, right where the tread needs to compress. This allows for better side hilling and better overall traction, so that when there's weight on the tire doesn't just crush it, and collapse in on itself. Because that basically just means you have a flat tire at that point, and it's not going to get you anywhere. So I highly recommend a nice set of dual stage foams, and you can get them in different firmnesses. If you go to Crawler Innovations, they have firm, medium, and soft outers, and then you can get the single closed cell inners. With the Prolines, it's really just one type, but I've always found that Proline foams work best with Proline tires, and then Crawler Innovations for everything else. Next is the wheels. Now, wheels aren't nearly as important as the foams and the tires themselves, but if you have a nice set of bead locks that will clamp down on your tires and also have a little bit of weight to them, these are aluminum bead locks, then that will help just put your tire more onto the surface. It'll increase your surface contact patch, and it'll help a little bit with traction. Not nearly as much as the other two, but I would like to point out that a nice set of wheels will definitely help. Now let's get on to some of the lesser known things, starting with weight distribution. Now, you've all probably heard that you want a forward weight bias in a crawler, and that is exactly right. You do want a forward weight bias in a crawler. That helps with climbing, but you also want the weight down low. So if we go down, sorry about the noise of the tripod here, and we look at the axles, you will notice that on this particular truck I have very big axles. These are Axial AR60s, and that's just because it's a 2.2. But I have a lot of weight gaining elements, such as aluminum steering knuckles with brass inserts. I've got an aluminum axle truss. I've got internal weights in the axles, and these elements, while adding durability, also add weight down low. If you have your weight all up front, but it's high up in the truck, then not only will that hurt your side hilling ability, but it will also hurt your tires' abilities to gain traction. All about this is putting as much force on the tires into the ground so that they have the biggest contact patch and are able to grip the surface that you're trying to traverse the best. Alright, so now that we've covered weight distribution, there's one last thing I want to cover, and that's driving technique. So typically you want to avoid the biggest obstacles, because that's the hardest to climb up, and maybe you want the challenge, that's fine. But when you're trying to climb up something, for example, and let's say you have a rock here and then you're climbing up the rock here, steer your wheels into this rock. That will force, as you're going forward, it will force the tires into this surface, and they will climb up the surface. And that will give you much more traction, and it will result in you being able to climb it quite a bit easier. And also, one of the things that can hurt your traction is if you get your axle high centered right up here. So be aware of what your axles can clear. So for example, I have a really fat diff pumpkin over on the passenger side of this truck. So what I want to make sure is that if I see a big rock coming, so that I steer it so that this diff pumpkin misses that rock and instead goes underneath the tube here. And that is one of the biggest things that can help, because if you're high centered on a rock and your tires can't get any surface contact patch, then they're not going to be going anywhere. So now, real quick, I want to touch base on a question I get asked very often, and that is, what are the best rock crawling tires? And the answer is it depends. It depends on quite a few different variables, really. And one of the biggest ones is the surface. So if you're climbing on just rock and exclusively rock, then the Hyrax are a pretty good choice. They're very highly rated in the rock department. However, they do suffer a little bit in the side hilling, and that's why you put in the two-stage foams to counter that. If you're looking for a bit more to do in dirt, then I would highly recommend something like the Proline Super Swampers, which look like this. These are on my dad's Gatekeeper. So those are designed to be a bit more all-terrain, I guess you could say. However, they don't work as well on the rock. So it really is a give and take either way. One of the most popular options right now are the Proline Crawlers and Proline Crawling Trenchers. And I've heard really good things about those. I have not tested them yet myself, but they're definitely very highly rated, and I've heard some very good things about them. So if you want to try something a little bit different and take a gamble, I'd recommend one of those sets of tires. And then we're just looking at Proline at the moment. You can go to so many different brands, Pitbull RC, Komodo, and J Concepts, and they have a ton of great tires. I have a friend that uses Pitbull Rock Beasts, and he says that those tires are fantastic. So it really depends on what you're looking for. I personally recommend Proline tires, but that's just from what I've experienced. Another thing to go along with that question is, what about licensed tires that look super realistic? So for example, these tires right here, these are licensed NATO Trail Grapplers. These are the stock tires on my Axial SCX 10.3. I keep these tires on here because they are licensed and this is more of a scale rig. And I found that they work decently on rock, but they're really better in the dirt from what I've seen. And you know, compared to the Hyrax, they're nowhere near as good, especially on like smooth wood or rock surfaces. This will do way better than this would. But if you want the realism, then you could definitely go with these, or something like a Proline KM3 or Proline Crawler. Those are both licensed tires. They are just like the full-sized version. Alright guys, hopefully you learned something from this video. If you did, please hit that like button, subscribe, and leave a comment in the section below for what videos you'd like to see next. But that's all for today, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one.